Well, hello everybody. Let's let's just get my thing working. How do I? Oh, right, there we go. I'll start off by saying who we are, the Heritage Society. Well, we were founded about 55 years ago and been going ever since. And we cover the whole of the civil parish of Hartley Wintney, which includes, besides the village of Hartley Wintney, that includes Phoenix Green, West Green, Dipley, but also takes in Elvetham and or Elvertham, as I should say, and Hertford Bridge. And the Heritage Society covers all of those areas within our scope of interest. We currently have about 250 members, and we normally hold two general meetings a year, including an AGM, at which a committee is elected to represent the views of our members in our discussions with various local authorities. The committee then meets monthly to discuss any items or issues of interest. And we're also present at the annual Hartley Wintney Fair, normally held, of course, in June or July, but not this year. Unfortunately, coronavirus has curtailed many of our normal meetings, but as I said before, we do hold our meetings still on Zoom. We are still hopeful, of course, that some sort of village event can take place later in this year. We keep in contact with our members by email, but we also run a website that can be found by searching for the Hartley Wintney Heritage Society on Google. This website is open to the public, but also has a section which can only be accessed by members. We've managed to keep our annual subscription membership rate down to a very reasonable £6. And I will, of course, provide details at the end of how you can join if you're not a member at the moment. At the moment, we are actually undertaking a complete review of our website with the intention of making it easier to maintain and to keep the information up to date. And we're also going to be enhancing our members section to contain a lot more historical information and some photographic images. So if I'll move on to the aims of the society. I've listed them here, and I will go through each of them in turn, but they basically are to protect and enhance the rural character of our village and its buildings and appearances, and to encourage suitable development within a rural context. We encourage an interest in the history of Hartley Wintney and Elvetham. We protect and encourage an interest in the wildlife and rural environment of Hartley Wintney as well. And we preserve and defend the conservation areas and enhance the commons and footpaths of Hartley Wintney and the surrounding countryside. We work with other organisations as appropriate to ensure the views of the society and its members are known and represented. And lastly, we publish documents in support of the objectives. And I'll look at each of these in turn. In short, the society researches and archives the past, records the present, and promotes a future that fits within its organs, its heritage. So firstly, looking at protecting heritage, but encouraging development. Some would say that these are mutually exclusive, i.e., how do we protect the character but still allow development? Well, we don't say this. We say this is not the case. What we are not is an organisation intent on maintaining the status quo with no regard for necessary changes to our environment. In other words, we're not saying not in our backyard, the so-called NIMBYs. We acknowledge that every village needs to grow and to meet present needs. And what we do want is to ensure that changes are made with due respect to our heritage and the character of our village. When the society was first set up in 1966, it was originally called the Hartley Wintney Preservation Society, but this was changed 3 years ago to the Hartley Wintney Heritage Society, precisely because of this point, that we do encourage development. We are protecting the heritage rather than preserving just what we have. In practice, this is done at monthly meetings, which we consider all the current building applications lodged with the local authority. We assess each planning application on its merits and come to a common view on whether we need to support the application or to object to certain aspects with reasoned argument. Normally for major developments, the committee would then canvass opinion amongst our membership before responding with official comments on behalf of the society. However, this is not to say that individual members are stopped from making their own individual comments, and we will always point out the opportunity for each member to do so individually if they do wish. The point is, we consider a reasoned argument produced on behalf of a society such as ours should carry some weight with the local authorities. Now, encouraging local history and interest in local history. And here I have to declare a special interest since the local history is a hobby of mine, and my particular committee role is that of historical research. Most of our members, by virtue of their interest in our heritage, also share an interest in local history, and this is an important aspect of our society. I mean, ours is a fascinating village with a history stretching back to before the Norman conquest of 1066. Originally, the village grew up in the custodianship of the Cistercian nunnery set up in the 11th century, and then after several hundred years of being a typical medieval village, grew into in the 18th century as an important stop on the coaching route between London and the West Country. Hartley Wintney has over 70 listed buildings within the old parish of Hartley Wintney, and a further 14 in the old parish of Elvetham. We have records of royal visitations, famous residents, including 3 heads of the British Army, and this all represents part of our character and heritage of the village that we are keen to protect. It's not just our buildings and structures that are of interest. We also need to ensure that we protect our natural environment and the wildlife that thrives in it. Hartley Wintney is fortunate indeed to have so many areas of commons and heathlands. Our village is known for its green areas and its green spaces, which includes Hunt's Common, the Cricket Green, St John's Common, Phoenix Green, West Green, and Dipley Common. These and many other parts of the parish are contained within designated conservation areas, which were drawn up in the 1980s, and our society was and remains prominent in the discussions on these. It is interesting to note, for instance, that the whole of Elvetham Park is a Grade 2 listed reserve, which illustrates the point that our heritage includes land areas as well as structures and buildings. How many people are aware that Hartley Wintney Parish is awash with public footpaths? There are more than 50 of them in Hartley Wintney and Elvetham, all legally protected highways under the Hampshire County Council. In the past, the Society has waged campaigns to publicise these footpaths, and we have produced literature outlining their locations. In fact, during the lockdown last year, I walked every single one of them, so I do know this. Many of these old paths are hundreds of years old and represent all the local routes available to our populations long before any form of metallised road. In fact, many of them tell a good story about a fascinating tale. For example, I was asked recently why there is a footpath to St Mary's Church on Elvetham Hall Estate that goes from Home Park Road, but ends at the church and goes nowhere else. Well, this was because the original village of Elvetham was around this church, or more precisely its predecessor. But when the Elvetham estate was enclosed in the 15th century, the entire village was moved out of the estate and located on its boundary, or pale, as it is called, hence the expression beyond the pale, and the naming of Pale Lane. So we work with local authorities. In order to understand how we work with these organisations, it's probably just worthwhile to give an outline of the planning process. Planning applications can be made online using the Hart District Council planning portal, and once a planning application is registered, it triggers communication to a number of people and groups, such as our 3 Hartley Wintney District Councillors, the Parish Council, the neighbours of the site or the residents that's affected, and other appropriate HDC or Hampshire County Council consultative departments such as conservation, listed buildings, tree officer, highways, environmental health. All of them, and each of them is invited to comment if they wish to. As a society, we will decide whether we need to comment based on some subjective judgments, such as the appropriateness or not of a particular application, looking at it against our society objectives. Now coming along to the society documents, the Society has been publishing the Hartley Road Journal since 1983, and the range of articles over the years illustrates perfectly, within its wide range of topics, the interests of our society. And I thought it was worthwhile picking out a few of the articles we have published over the years to illustrate the point. Incidentally, back copies of this journal are all available on the website for members. So firstly, historical articles, and we've done a lot of these, and they range from historical research on the origins and historical development of Hartley Wintney. We've done a lot of subjects such as St Mary's Church, and a number of articles such as to talk about local services such as the fire brigade. And we have also extended these historical aspects to include other items of local interest outside of the parish, such as Basing House, Odium Castle, and the lost village of Morrell Green. Local industries. We've a number of articles on various industries associated with Hartley Wintney, such as agriculture and the 18th and 19th coaching trade. In the 19th and early 20th century, Hartley Wintney was well known for its brewery, and all of these topics have been subject to a large range of articles. Many local groups have benefited from publicity given by our articles in describing their organisations, including the Women's Institute, the Hartley Art Group, the football, cricket and golf clubs, the Royal British Legion, and the Ancient Order of Foresters Friendly Society. Many of these have had articles written about them. Local families also have several old families have published articles about their particular family lines. And local walks. I said before about interest that we've had in local footpaths, and we've published over 30 of these in the Hartley Journal. It's also interested, the journal, in the protection of our natural environment, as well as the building and physical structures. And birds, butterflies, trees, woodland creatures, hedgehogs have all been subject of articles over the years. Each journal will also contain details of current planning applications, but articles are available and how planning takes place within the district. As an example, we're just shortly, next week, I believe, due to publish our latest journal. And the articles in this edition will be typical of the information we normally supply. So it's worth just going through them to see what sort of things we'll be talking about. We'll be talking about our normal annual competitions, which are a front garden award, photographic competitions. We'll have a number of historical articles. The one I've written on Alveetham Park and Gardens, the origins of Hartley Row, and the building works in the village associated with the famous arts and crafts designer and architect Robert Weir Schultz, who lived in the village for a number of years at the beginning of the 20th century. Course planning updates we have in there. Current ones include Hatton's Pond, Conservation Area Review, and all the planning updates, including the Lamb, the Grey House, etc., etc. With historical publications, well, the best known publication by the Society, I'm sure many of you have seen this and read this, is The Old Village of Hartley Wintney, first produced in 1970 and written by the then chairman of the Society, David Gorski. It's subsequently been revised, and for anyone interested in the history and heritage of Hartley Wintney, it is a must read. It sets the scene with descriptions of the village as it would have appeared in the time of Elizabeth I and on into the 18th and 19th centuries, and it describes in a series of walks around the village, including Alveetham, and outlines the history and houses, people and businesses. It's full of interesting anecdotes and is well illustrated with old pictures of the village. It's still available today, and as other publications are, you can get them from the Hartley Antiques in the High Street. David Gorski also produced another book, actually, called The Village in Great Grandfather's Day, which described life in Victorian times around the period of 1880. Sadly, this is out of print now, but we do hope to publish a transcript of it soon in our members section on the website. More recently, there was another Society publication called Early Victorian Hartley Wintney, and that was written by myself. Using the tithe map of 1842 and the census of 1841, I explored life in the village when Victoria came to the throne. It's available at Hartley Antiques again, and is only £6. As well as publications, the Heritage Society holds a large collection of old photographs, framed copies of which are available. It is planned to publish these photographs at a later stage in the members section of the website, although we will protect them, of course. Incidentally, the Society is always interested in adding to their collection, so please get in contact if you do have any old photographs that we may have. Well, that's really coming to the end of my brief talk on the Society. I'm not quite sure how long I took, actually, but I'm happy to take questions if there are any. If you are interested in joining us, though, please feel free to contact me initially, because I can put you onto the various the membership sector, etc. And I've just put up on the screen now my email, so I'll be happy to take any contacts from you and answer any questions you may have by that means as well. So I'll stop the share now. There we go.